Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY. Today we're going to be going ahead and lining the bed of this 2021 GMC Canyon with this Raptor Liner Kit, so stay tuned. So the first thing we need to do before we go ahead and do anything is we need to wash out the bed of this truck. Even though it doesn't look dirty, like any painting project, before we go ahead and scuff up the surface, we want to get any oils and greases off of there, because if you don't and you go to scuff the surface, you're going to work those oils and greases down into the scuff marks that you make, and whatever you're applying to the surface won't stick properly. So let's get this washed up and then we can move on. Another thing to keep in mind too is most off-the-shelf car washes these days contain some sort of wax or additives like that. So all I'm using is just some dish soap when we're going to go ahead and wash this out here. Now it is pretty sunny today. A lot of this is going to dry on its own, but not nearly as quickly as I want it to. So we're going to pull this down to the shop, and then before we start prepping this bed, I'll go ahead and I'm just going to blow it out with some compressed air, and then we can get started with the prep work. Before we go ahead and actually start prepping the surface, the first thing we need to do is remove all of these plastic plugs along the bed. These are for tie down spots and accessory anchor points, things like that, but we need to go ahead and remove those so we don't end up scuffing those up and making them look terrible. Alright, so what we're going to be using is this orbital tool. I picked this one up from Harbor Freight. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on an expensive name brand one just because I don't know how much use I'm going to get out of it. And we have this nylon cut brush on here. From the research I did, this should be the best option. This will take it down to paint if you wanted to, and some people do. I don't feel that it's necessary, and I don't want to take this all the way down to the paint in the bed here, so we're just going to use this to put a good scuff on it so that the bed liner has something to stick onto. And then we've also got Ear Pro and Eye Pro. You could wear a respirator, especially if you were working inside, but because I'm outside and there's a good breeze today, I'm just going to skip the respirator, but you could always use that and it absolutely couldn't hurt. Alright, so we've got the bed all scuffed up now. That nylon brush actually was a lot better at removing the paint in terms of aggressiveness than I thought it was going to be. Just based on some of the reviews I had seen, you can see that we did get down to the metal in some spots. It burned through. It's not a big deal. It'll stick perfectly fine. I just kind of wanted to avoid going all the way to the metal. Should there ever be a failure of the lining, I kind of wanted to have some primer still there that would prevent rust. But either way, I don't have a feeling that that's going to fail on me for any reason, so I'm comfortable with it. We're good to go now. Next thing we're going to do is we obviously need to clean the bed up, and I'm going to use some acetone for that, but that's going to take me forever with how much material is in the bed. So just like you saw me before, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm just going to spray the bed out with some water, and then bring it down here, spray it out with some compressed air, probably take it for a drive down the road just to let the movement of the air and everything really dry it out good, because I did come across a few spots like in the crevice back there where there was a little water left over. Get this thing really good and dried out, clean it up with the acetone, and then we can move on to actually spraying the liner down in the bed. Alright, so now the bed's dry, we're just going to take some acetone. I've got it here in a spray bottle, make things easier. Remember, don't store acetone in a spray bottle, but temporary use is perfectly fine. And we've got some cleanup towels, and we're just going to work from the back of the bed forward. Also should note at this point, I did notice that my shoes were getting quite a bit of dirt in the bed, so if you're working in not so clean of an area, from here on out, every time I get in the bed, I'm just going to kick my shoes off just to keep from adding dirt or debris into the bed. All right, now that we're all clean, we're gonna go ahead and start masking. First, we're gonna go around, we're gonna mask all of our definite edges, all of our tape edges from where we don't want paint. And then after that, we'll actually take some plastic sheeting and then we'll tape to those pieces of tape. And that plastic sheeting will cover the larger areas, such as the back of the cab where we don't wanna get any overspray. Alright, so I skipped ahead a little bit just because I knew getting this plastic wrap on here was going to be a little bit of a nightmare with the breeze that we have today. Inside would definitely be more ideal, but you can see I've got everything masked off, and then we've got everything with plastic where we don't want to get any overspray. So next is going to be actually applying our spray. So first up, you have the spray tool here. It comes in a few pieces. You've got the pickup tube right here, and then you have your nozzle here. You do have to assemble those and then add an air fitting to the bottom. And then you have your actual product here, to which you're going to add 8 ounces of your hardener here. Now the kit says to use the measuring cup provided. My kit didn't come with a measuring cup, so I'm just going to use our kitchen measuring cup because we've been needing a new one for a while anyway, but 8 ounces of hardener per bottle. So now we've gone ahead, we've shook this up vigorously for about 2 minutes. I went a little bit longer, I just wanted to make sure it was really good and coated. I've got my air compressor set to about 50 psi. They recommend between 40 and 60. I'll go ahead and play around with that and see how I like it. I'm going to see how this goes on because some places do recommend 2 to 3 coats. I have a feeling, and with an hour in between, but I still have a feeling that's going to be difficult to get into the bed, like the corners and stuff, and be able to spray this if we're doing multiple coats. I may do that. It's probably better to do multiple coats, but I need to see how this goes on first, and then I'll decide. Alright, so that was a pretty medium to light coat, medium at best, and it used 2 bottles. Kit contains 4, so we're going to end up doing 2 coats. So I'll give you a close-up on the texture and how everything looks here in a second. We are going to wait the 60 minutes between coats, and then they recommend cleaning out the gun with acetone. I found a good way to do that is just take your same measuring cup used for the hardener, fill it up with some acetone, and then keeping the air gun hooked up to your air, just suck the acetone up through the gun, and then blast air through it for a little bit to dry the acetone out and have the gun clean for when you come back out for the next coat. So like I said, we're going to wait 60 minutes, come back, and we'll spray the last 2 coats on. Or I'm sorry, the last 2 bottles on. So it's been about 60 minutes. I just went ahead and felt around and pushed down with my finger pretty good on a couple spots here. After 60 minutes, it's definitely dry enough where I can walk on this again. So that part of it's not going to be an issue, but we'll go ahead and we'll mix up our remaining 2 bottles and we'll get those sprayed down. All right, so there's the second coat all applied. I forgot to hit record again after I mixed up the last 2 bottles there, but it's all on. It's been sitting for a couple minutes now, enough where I'm comfortable to go in. We're going to start pulling off this masking very carefully. It is still pretty tacky, but we're going to pull this off. I want to get the masking off before this stuff dries completely. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this one. Honestly, I'm really impressed with how this came out. So far, it looks professional quality to me. I'm not too terribly familiar with rhino linings or things like that, truck bed linings. I know back in the day, years and years ago, my dad had his F-150 way back, professionally rhino lined, and this quite honestly looks like the same exact results that his truck bed did when he had it done professionally. Obviously, time will tell, you know, as far as durability and whether or not this holds up. However, what I'll do is I'll do a follow-up video, probably in like a year, maybe I'll give it a year, and I'll just make a follow-up video and show you guys how this is held up in terms of durability. But even after that first 60-minute coat and when we came back, it was already very hard to the touch. It feels very durable, so I'm confident this is going to protect the bed, and honestly, I can't wait to see how it performs. The only thing left to do now is going to be add those plastic plugs back in, but I'm not going to go ahead and do that until this is cured up a little bit. I don't want them getting stuck to the soft rhino lining before it's had a chance to clear. So like I said, that's going to do it for this one, guys. As always, if you like the video, be sure to hit that like button. Feel free to leave a comment below, and if you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Thanks.